Good afternoon, Feaster Falcon families. My name is Mr. Villareal. I am the Executive Director here at Feaster Charter. With me today, I have Mrs. Megan Ramirez, our Associate Principal, who is going to be helping me with the presentation. Thank you for joining us today on the 25th of January. Here is the agenda that we have today. We will be discussing in order the resiliency meetings that we had just started this month with our students. I will talk a little bit more about what that is. We will be talking about the Elpac English language assessment that our students are taking who are English language learners. We will give you some COVID updates as well as an update on our VAPA principal selection. Okay, if we can go on to the next slide, please. Thank you. So it's great to be back from our winter break. We hope that you all had an amazing 3 weeks with your families. I say, we're glad to be back because it seems like it was just yesterday, even though we're back now in the third week after the break and almost towards the end of January. But we've been really busy this last 2 weeks with our teachers, with our administration, with our coaches, with our auxiliary team to really get to know our students a whole lot better to what we through what we call resiliency meetings. They're about setting goals and understanding purposes of how we are working with students. So if I can share with you here, the purpose of these meetings are to meet the diverse and dynamic needs of all our students by looking at each student holistically. So we have 1,142 students right now on our rosters, and over the last 2 weeks or almost 2.5 weeks, we have been meeting with teachers to talk about every single individual student. And it has been rewarding. And some of the goals that we have been looking at to address and develop are making sure that students are meeting all their goals in academics and socially, emotionally. We're identifying risk factors to help students who may need some support. We're creating intervention plans to provide that support for them. We're, ensuring that our families also have the right resources, linking them to community services if needed. And we want to nurture the growth of our students ultimately by understanding how they're going to progress better and how, we as a team with you as parents can really work on that goal. And ultimately, we want to develop a collective understanding so that when we communicate with you, the families, whether it's in student-teacher conferences, whether it's in conferences because there's a need, because there's an IEP or a concern has come up, we will have all the information ready for you. So if we can go on to our next slide, please. Again, some details of this, and I just want to let you know that it's not an easy task, but we are definitely putting our effort into this. It's taking around 1 hour per teacher or homeroom classroom, and just to let you know, we have, I believe, close to 50 teachers. It's not the exact number off the top of my head, so imagine, that's 50 hours that we're pouring into this, and it's what is needed. And those 50 hours, we include a principal, we include a coach, a counselor, a teacher, and if needed, a special education teacher if students have those needs as well. And during these meetings, these are the topics that we discuss: the strengths that each student has, academic and social emotional. If there is a need that this student has, whether again it's academic or social emotional, we look into the student history to see if there's anything that we can understand better to see how we better support the student. And we also work with our teachers and our team of auxiliary staff to look at interventions that are in place. Is this student already getting small group support by one of our intervention teachers? Is this student, getting support from our counselor, or they may need support from our counselor? And of course, we brainstorm next steps for each and every student with our staff. Our goal eventually will be to also communicate these steps to you, the families, but let me work with our staff to get there to that level. So thank you. Let's go on to our next slide, please. Okay, thank you. Right now, I'm going to turn this over to our next topic, to Mrs. Megan Ramirez, who is going to be talking to you about our LPAC, which she will also explain. Mrs. Ramirez, you're muted.
Let me go ahead and unmute. And thank you everyone for joining us today. So I'm going to be sharing a little bit about the Elpac, which we are currently preparing for. And I just want to give a little information about what the Elpac is, why we give it, as well as some additional details. So I'll go ahead and start with what is the Summative Elpac. So the Summative Elpac is the English Language Proficiency Assessments for California. So it is an assessment that we give in order to determine the English language proficiency of students whose primary language is not English. Students are tested in listening, reading, writing, and speaking. So why do we give this test? Well, the purpose of the Summative Elpac is to measure progress towards English proficiency, to help inform proper educational placements, and to help determine if a student is ready to be reclassified. This is important when we're ensuring that students continue to receive the supports that they need in order to do well in school. So this is what it is and why we give it. And this is something that we do every year. So if you could go ahead and go to the next slide, we're going to look in the next slide about who it is that's taking it and when it will be given. So the summative assessment is given to all students grades K through 12 who have been identified as English learners. So the students will take the assessment every year until they are reclassified as fluent English proficient. So for grades TK through 2, and I'm sorry, I said earlier grades K through 12, but that includes grade TK. So for TK through 2, we are going to begin on February 7th, and we will be testing them all the way till April 22nd. For our upper grades, so grades 3 through 8, we will also begin on February 7th, and we will be ending on February 18th. Go ahead and go to the next slide. Okay, so now we talked about what the test is, why we give it, who it is that will be taking it, when we'll take it. Now, what do we do once we get the results? How, as a parent, do you see how your child is doing on the Elpac test? So on the Elpac assessment. So once we receive the results, you as the parent will receive a summative Elpac score report. Now, you see the example on your screen. This is a sample of the page 1 of the report. There's going to be 2 pages. So I'm going to just kind of point out a few features on this page that you might want to look out for once you receive your child's results. So the first section is the overall score. So if you see the little oval on the left-hand side, you will see a level score, and the levels are 1, 2, 3, and 4, as well as you'll see a scaled score. So that is information for how your child did on the entire test. Down at the bottom, you'll see a section, there's 4 blue ovals. You'll see a section, that section is called what students can do at each level. So those levels explain what the different scaled scores as well as the descriptors for each of those levels. And you can see where your child is at in that key. Let's go ahead and go to the second slide. It takes a little while to change. There's a little delay there. So on the second page, it's going to sort of break it down a little bit more. So you'll notice that there are 2 main sections. There's an oral language section and there's a written language section. When we're talking about oral language, this is going to be our listening and speaking sections of the assessment. And when we're talking about written language, this is going to be our reading and writing sections of the assessment. And again, you'll have a level score as well as a scaled score and some descriptors about how your child is doing on the right-hand column there. And then at the very bottom, you'll have an Elpac score history. This will just show you how your child has done this year in comparison to prior years. Go ahead and go to the next slide. Thank you so much, Heather. All right, Now, what we just talked about was the summative Elpac. That is what the majority of our students are taking each and every year until they've been reclassified. When a student arrives in a school for the first time, so this is their first time, they are new to a California school, and they are identified as speaking another language other than English, schools are given 30 days in order to give them the Elpac initial assessment. So this assessment, the kids are only going to take once, and that's when they are new to a California school. So this would only apply to you and your child if your child is new to a California school this year. And we just give this assessment in order to identify if a student is an English learner and if they need those supports in English, or if we consider them already proficient in English. Go ahead and change the slide. Again, there's a report that you would receive if your child took the initial Elpac, and you can see that it's similar with just some few differences. You'll still get an overall performance level and score, and that's the box there on the left-hand side. And then can we go ahead and switch to the page 2? And I apologize, there must be a delay. There we go. And then on the page 2, at the top, you'll see a breakdown of your child's oral language and their written language performance, as well as down at the bottom, you'll have, again, that sort of key that explains the different levels, the different performance levels. And you'll be able to see what that looks like and where your child scores at. So this is the Elpac, and these are the score reports that you will be receiving towards the end of the year. And I believe that is it for Elpac.
Thank you, Mrs. Megan, for that update and that explanation of how our English language learners are assessed on a yearly basis with the goal of reclassifying them to become English reclassified students. RFEP students. Okay, so next year I want to share with you all updates on COVID, and I know that we continually are just sharing this information. Many of you are getting our emails, whether or not your son was a close contact or a non-close contact, or whether there was an individual on campus who tested positive. The whole community gets an email. That was the case. That there have been some changes to where we are now only notifying students that are directly affected. So understand that unless you get a phone call from the school, you get a letter that is brought home directly from your son and or daughter, or there's an email that comes to you. There most likely was not a contact here at school, related, that is. Okay, so when in doubt, as you see right there, please contact the school office at 422-8397. Any of our office staff, Mrs. Marta, Mrs. Marcela, Mrs. Tommy, our great nurse, and Mrs. Melissa Gonzalez, our attendance health clerk, who have been really helpful, will be able to answer your questions. One thing that is going to be happening in the Chula Vista Elementary School District, and we as a dependent charter of the district are also going to be working with the district on this effort, is that starting on February 7th, the COVID clinic will be partnering with CVSD to start testing students and staff on a weekly basis. Of course, this is with parent consent. You all should have already received an email from the district where you sign up for the COVID clinic to give your initial information, and then you will be getting follow-up emails after that. If you have any questions, of course, please contact us, and please be reminded that unless we have your consent, your son or daughter will not be tested. But please understand that we are trying to keep kids in school as much as possible, especially for those students that are only close contacts, that are not, that don't have the virus, right? So this new process here is to ensure that we're not sending kids home just because they're in the classroom and they're a close contact when they are not exhibiting any, illness and or they don't test positive as well. So please look out for those emails and please sign up for them. It's really helpful for us. Understand that we are doing our very best to keep our school open, so continue to wear a well-fitted mask when coming on campus to school. Your children have to wear a mask unless there is a medical exemption, and we have masks here at school. So please, if that is a concern of yours, let it not be a concern, because as soon as you drop off your kid or they come on campus, we will give them a mask. Okay, that is our obligation. So please understand that. And I did explain this bullet on close contacts and non-close contacts. You will be notified by letter, email, or phone call. Okay, and again, when in doubt, please call the front office. And we really thank you for your patience. If we can go on to the next slide, please. I want to share some exciting news for our students and families in the VAPA program, but really to the Feaster community at large. Over the last year and a half, we've had some transitions here at Feaster Charter, starting with myself as your new executive director, who came here last May 19th, and now 8 months later, it seems like it's just been yesterday. We've moved along, a far way, and we've hired a new principal, Dr. Slayman, who is not here with us today. And we've also hired a new associate principal, Mrs. Megan Ramirez. And we are now also hiring a new VAPA principal, Mr. Jimmy Gordillo. He will be starting with us February 7th, barring any complications with his paperwork for employment, but everything should go well, and you all should be meeting him one way or another starting February 7th, and he will be working to support and enhance the learning experiences for our VAPA program, Visual and Performing Arts. He will be working to support and enhance the learning experience in our dual language Spanish program for those students and families that are in the dual language program. And of course, he is here to support our families with their needs. So just as Mrs. Megan Ramirez has made herself available at any point in time for any questions, within the limits of her schedule, of course, as well as Dr. Slyman and myself, we will be here to meet the needs of the community, the families, the students, any stakeholder, to ensure that our students and our staff are meeting our obligations of teaching your children. Thank you for that, and we look forward to greeting Mr. Gordillo starting February 7th. We have one more slide. I want to say a heartfelt thank you. Being an educator, well, let me just say, being an individual working through whatever COVID complications and or conditions in our work and home life, it has not been easy. It's been challenging, and I empathize for or sympathize, let me just say that, for the families that have, many of our families who have the young children who you have to do a lot of juggling. When you get a notice that your kid's been in close contact, they have to stay, at home on quarantine, you have to go to work, you have to find daycare, you have to find, you have to take them to go get tested. It's a lot of work, and I understand. And the reason I said I sympathize with you is that because I have two boys, but they're a little older, so a lot more independent, and they can take care of themselves a lot more than the younger kids. So I thank you for your patience on that. And I want to remind you all that we prioritize safety first. Our kids cannot learn if they don't feel safe. Our kids cannot optimize, their abilities and opportunities if they do not feel safe. And you are not, let's say, also secure at home and or at work if you are also not feeling safe at home. Or if you're not feeling that your son or daughter is safe at school. So thank you for your patience. Understand that we're doing everything for that purpose. Our staff, again, is also being personally impacted by COVID. Please understand that, teachers are having to stay home, and they do not like to stay home because they do not like to, honestly, provide substitute lesson plans. It's a lot of extra work, and their kids don't get the benefit of having the actual teacher there. So we're working through that, and many of our teachers also have kids here at Feaster, and they're having to go home because their kids are also, impacted by COVID. So understand that if your son or daughter's teacher is absent, it's unfortunately most likely probably because of COVID, and not because they don't want to be here, because they do want to be here. So please thank your son or daughter's teacher at any point in time that you can through Dojo, or you see them in the morning or afternoon, or send a thank you with your son or daughter. They will appreciate it. Thank you so much for doing that. And ultimately, I want to say thank you for trusting us, for doing the right thing to keep our school open. We know that that is your priority for us. I hear a lot of questions around the community. Is the school going to close? What's going to happen? Is Feaster going to close? Let me tell you this. Unless you hear anything directly from me, our school is not closing. Okay, and I'm not looking for any opportunity to close the school down, because it just creates so much more work for you, the parents, but ultimately our students really miss out on the learning. But really, what our students miss out mostly, if you ask them honestly, they miss out on the socialization, being here with their friends. I'm going to share something with you, and I'll say this with a lot of let's say sincerity. There's a lot of talk out there about, some of the protocols that we are implementing, and I understand that, there are different perspectives, but we as administrators and teachers here at school, we follow directives for protocol. That is our job. And we want your kids to come to school with masks because that is the current protocol. We want to make sure that you are doing everything that you can at home and within the community to also maintain your family safe, to try and limit exposure to your son or daughter, so that, when they come to school, they're hopefully coming to us healthy, especially after the weekends, especially if they're visiting families over the, extended family over the weekend. We understand it's difficult. We want to see our extended family, but but understand that we're trying to do this for our kids, and these are just suggestions from me to you, not directives. So thank you for understanding. I want to thank you all again, and I want to remind you all that all of this is in service of our students, of you, the community. We are humble, and I remind you all, as I will say it again, I am a humble community service provider, and I am here to do my very best to ensure that I am meeting the needs of the Feaster Charter School community. Thank you again for joining us for this Coffee with Administration, and I wish you all a great evening, and please do not hesitate to contact us with any question, comment, and or concern. As I say, if I am not aware, if we're not aware of concerns, we cannot take care of those concerns for you. Have a great evening.